Human beings love to tell stories. Since the beginning of time, humans have been coming up with mythology, tall tales, and fables. Into the modern era, stories dominate media and pop culture. Storytelling is an innate part of us. We search for meaning in the chaos of life through the structure of stories because, fundamentally, inside every one of us is a storyteller. And I think some of the purest, rawest storytelling comes from the amateur. You know the type, the next great American novelist, the wayward poet, the teenage girl on DeviantArt posting cringe. There's something about self-indulgent, unpolished, raw storytelling that hooks me. Maybe it's the unfettered emotion of it all, maybe it's the way the story is created with a single selfish audience in mind. But I think what really gets me is how these types of amateur stories are made with so much passion and love, you can't help but feel hooked by the contact high of it. Amateur comes from the Latin amare, after all, meaning in its purest form, to love. So, I decided to write a story about that. My name's Danny, and this is the story of StarSwallower. So, a little bit of background. What is StarSwallower? StarSwallower is intended to be a JRPG with visual novel elements, but I'm not a game dev, so this will probably never happen. I mean, we'll be lucky if these YouTube videos come out with any kind of frequency, but I digress. The point is, StarSwallower is meant to be an interactive story, particularly one with branching paths based on player input. I currently have 5 routes planned, each of which will probably get their own separate video eventually, but for now, let's focus on the main story beats that remain relatively constant, regardless of which route you end up taking. Beginning with the world. This is the world of Feralis, a planet populated by enchanted animals. Feralis is a world of magic, the source of which comes from the solid gem core at the center of the planet. The solid gem core is called the Star, and it's considered a sacred object of research and cultural reverence by the people, well, furries, of Feralis. The Star is basically the entire driving force of this story, because as the source of all magic in this enchanted world, it would be a really bad thing if it were to suddenly, vanish? Unfortunately, that's exactly what happens when Neo here eats it. And this is Neo. Neo here is a teenage girl attending a magic school called an Astral Academy, and is functionally our main character. As part of Neo's magical training at the school, she's able to take a pilgrimage to the center of the world, where she will approach the star and bathe in its light. After successfully bathing in its light, Neo and all the rest of the students will receive what is called their star gifts, which are unique magical powers that are tailored to their personality. The only problem is, as I mentioned, instead of receiving her star gift all niceys, Neo eats it. See, what had happened was, as Neo approaches the star to bathe in its light and receive her star gift, she blacks out. When she awakens, the star is gone, and Neo is brimming with power. She eated it. But now, in the great chasm where the star once stood is instead 2 red eyes staring out of the darkness. By swallowing the star, Neo has released its greatest secret and most foul prisoner, the ancient dark mage known as Eon. And this is Eon. Eon is the main antagonist of this side of the story, and the main conceit of Eon is that she's mysterious and her backstory is nebulous. What we do know is that she once tried to do what Neo did completely by accident, that is, absorb the entirety of the star in order to wield its magic all for herself. When this backfired, she was trapped inside the star for seemingly eternity, until the star itself vanished and Eon was set free. Now, she's after the star's power once again, for reasons known only to her. Now, Neo is forced on a grand journey across the world of Feralis, pursued by both Eon and the rest of the mages of this world, who will stop at nothing to see the star return to its rightful place at the center of the planet. As she searches for a way to undo what has been done, she makes friends, squares off against villains, and unlocks more of the star's secrets. It all comes to a head when, armed with her new knowledge, allies, and powers, she faces off against Eon one last time to defeat the Dark Mage once and for all. Sounds like a cool game, right? Well, it gets even better, because I've only told you half of the story, the JRPG half to be precise. For the other half of it, we'll have to look towards the visual novel portion of this hypothetical game, and to, arguably, the most important character in the entire story. This is Vixie. Vixie is a 15-year-old girl who just moved to a new school and is eager to reinvent herself and finally make friends. She's quiet, moody, keeps to herself, and is infinitely creative. Vixie is the reason StarSwallower exists. because StarSwallower is Vexie's story. Let me explain. So throughout the visual novel portion of the game, you play as Vexie, navigating your new school and the various social challenges a typical teenage girl would face. Things like making friends, having your first crush, getting bullied, keeping up with your grades, all sorts of typical stressors. At the end of the day, in between classes, in the margins of homework, Vexie works on the story of StarSwallower in order to relieve stress and cope with the day-to-day, as an escapism sort of thing. What this means is how you, the player, navigate the social situations of Vexie's day-to-day life directly affects her mental state, and in turn, the story she's writing, which is the RPG section where you play as Neo. Depending on whether you steer her towards peace or catastrophe decides the fate of the characters in the RPG, and really of Vexie herself. This is where those 5 routes come into play, and where they are set and decided. It's up to you to choose wisely, or don't. I'm not your mom. It's just a story anyway. And that's the beauty of stories, isn't it? Not just that they exist and can be anything and everything, but the fact that everyone has one, even if you don't think you do. Human beings are storytellers by nature. We use them to make sense of chaos, and in Vexie's case, to cope with the crushing loneliness of being an outsider in a strange new world. So, now that I've told you my story, I want to know, what's yours? Do you have a story you're working on, like me or Vexie? Tell me all about it in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. And if you liked mine, let me know by hitting the like or subscribe button to see more of me. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me talk all the way to the end. I leave you with this cute fan art of me by Heave. Bye!